All right, welcome to Bet the Edge. I'm Jay Croucher here with Drew Dinsick, recording Tuesday afternoon. We're going to talk about Lions-Cowboys, Bucs-Saints, and Thursday Night Football, Niners in Seattle. But we'll start off with the news of Tuesday, which is that Robert Saleh has been abruptly fired, left behind in London. Could be another man left behind in London if the Jags don't win one of these next two games as well. But Drew, with Saleh fired, not really any ripple effects in the market around the Jets. Do you think there is any bet to be made for or against the Jets with this news? And does this change how you handicap New York going forward at all?
Boy, I think we need more information still before making a sincere decision on that sort of thing. This isn't your normal in-season firing where the team had clearly given up on him and you're expecting some bounce in terms of effort from the team now that they have, kind of gotten their way and gotten rid of the guy that they didn't want to play for. This does not feel like one of those types of situations. So I don't know that expecting a bounce from the Jets players is really all that likely. Upon hearing the reaction, my first thought was, wow, man, I guess they really didn't get along well with Aaron Rodgers after all. And this is an Aaron Rodgers call, I suppose. And they're going to put Hackett in charge. Oh, goodness, this could go really poorly. And then you get a little more information. And no, this wasn't even necessarily obviously an Aaron Rodgers call. And I thought, okay, well, maybe this is a Joe Douglas call. He's throwing, he realizes, that there are some aspects about the way he's put together this roster that are a problem. And he's trying to throw Robert Saleh into but no, not a Joe Douglas call either. This came directly from the top, and from an owner who's never fired a coach in season before. This was a little bit of a surprise. I mean, we expected coming into the year that the pressure was on both Saleh and Douglas, and I thought that if they didn't realize the potential of this roster this season, then they were both gone on, around New Year's. But an in-season firing is a bit of a surprise, and I'd like to understand more about why this happened and why now. Certainly, the clear and obvious takeaway was the Saleh was on a much shorter leash than any of us realized starting the season, and the loss to the Broncos compounded with the loss in London, was all that was needed to signal the end of the regime. But I think Ulbricht is perfectly fine to step in and do a very reasonable, solid impression. And I think the problems that exist with the Jets are still largely with their run blocking, with Aaron Rodgers' physical state, and with some of the issues with the quality of just the way that the offense is schemed. And none of those things change based on this firing. And so I think expecting that the major problems are solved, or that this guard and this guard tackle duo is now going to play better and provide more run blocking for Breece Hall. Not really. I don't know that I see any of that. And it's crazy that 100% full perfect effort from the Jets this week would put them in first place in the AFC East still. So there's still certainly latitude for the Jets to realize some success this season. But I'd like to hear from some of the players about sort of where their heads are at now, and whether this is more of a signal from the owner to the team that I don't believe in you guys, or if this is a signal from the owner to the team that you need to put more effort into your weekly preparation and perform better, or this thing is over. So this could definitely go sideways.
Do you think that the Jets were a very makeable field goal against Denver, and a wide open pass to Garrett Wilson down the sideline against Minnesota, which is probably like minus 600 to be completed or whatever. Those two just actions, I guess, away from being 4-1. Do you buy into the idea that the Jets are kind of fine and that they are, close to being that type of team? Or do you think that there are kind of deeper lying things that suggest that this is, more like a 500 type of team at the moment?
Deeper lying issues. Certainly the fact that Breece Hall and the run block win rate is as pedestrian as they are as a surprise, considering how many resources they poured into the offensive line in the offseason. And the fact that we are now 5 weeks into the Kirk Cousins Achilles rehab display, and he is putting the ball on a dime and running extremely effective offense, and Aaron Rodgers is also a little bit of a head scratcher and a surprise. So yeah, there's problems here for sure with the way the offense is schemed, with the way that the offensive line is playing, and with Rodgers specifically ability to deliver those passes, which is why you lost. Losing to the Broncos, you could say it was a makeable field goal. They probably should have won, but like, they were 7-point favorites, man. Like, they were up against Bo Nix, a rookie, on the road against a very good defense. And, the fact that they still couldn't find a way to win that game was a huge red flag. And then similarly, the fact that Rodgers couldn't make that pass to Wilson when he had, the game-winning touchdown is a red flag. And the defense is kind of being lauded as being still very, very good, which my numbers say, yes, they are still very good, but it is very, very important to put context around that with the fact that their 3 wins, or at least their 3 impressive defensive performances, came against Bo Nix, Jacoby Brissett, and Will Levis.
Yeah, and Sam Darnold as well. I think.
And Sam Darnold, yeah.
Defensive performance. All right, let's pivot from that crisis theme to a team that narrowly avoided crisis in Pittsburgh, in the Cowboys, who are 3-point dogs at home to the Detroit Lions. The total is 52.5. I can't remember what the line was when these two teams played in, I think, week 17 last year, but I want to say it was like Cowboys -4.5, -5. This is a huge swing from there. There's been a lot of Lions steam. Drew, do you agree with the steam?
I do not. This is going to turn into a Cowboys or pass for me. The December 30th game between these two teams did close Dallas -5. The total was 52. So not a lot has changed in the world of the total, but yeah, wow. Apparently an 8-point relative side pricing between these two teams. And, that's not squareable for me. It's not even close to squareable. The 2 biggest disagreements I have right now on sides for this week, in terms of just making a raw number, are both teams coming off of a bye. Maybe something has happened with the bye that I'm missing in terms of how you should be pricing teams, but giving the Lions any type of a win equity bump that pushes them past 3 is really, really tough for me to square. I think that the Cowboys did prove a lot of things to the good in their game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. I was against the Cowboys in that game, and so maybe this is a little bit of overreaction from me, kind of believing that, hey, if you're well coached and well coordinated on defense, Micah Parsons and Lawrence's unavailability doesn't matter. Okay, well, this is going to be put to the test more sincerely, because one of the keys to getting below expectation performance out of Jared Goff is getting interior pressure on him. And I don't know that the Cowboys are going to be able to get a ton of that in this game. The Lions presumably are going to come into this with a relatively healthy offensive line. And I think just people in general seeing what they saw on the front end of the bye from Detroit has them upgraded beyond what is reasonable to a degree. I haven't bet this game yet. I think it's to 3.5, though. I'm Team Cowboys.
Okay. Do you think there's anything right now that the Cowboys do at an above average level?
Ooh, kicking.
Yeah, that's true.
Brandon Aubrey is amazing.
Actually, I caught a ball from Brandon Aubrey during warm-ups on the field, so I can confirm that he does kick it quite nicely before the game and during. But is there anything else that they do?
I mean, I like just Dak Prescott's, just his general field general nature. He has gone up against a murderer's row of defenses this year, Jay, and he is comporting himself fine. And I know that he doesn't have the world's most outstanding weapons, and CeeDee Lamb seems to have taken a weird step backwards. And I know that he has done some high-profile, big mistake things, including against the Steelers. But I think overall, he is still a top 10 quarterback. And the fact that he has played so many difficult pass defenses already this season, and now gets a Lions team that was a walking penalty against Seattle, should open up things for the Cowboys offense in this game. So I'm perfectly fine kind of dying on the take of Dak being an above average quarterback.
Okay, that's fair. They're 17th in dropback EPA so far, but to your point, they have played some pretty good defenses to date, though. Giants, Browns, perhaps not so good. Ravens, we'll see. Burrow lit them up. Steelers have a good pass defense, but I believe in Dak, but something just lacking in a certain oomph at the moment. The Cowboys, which is not super scientific, but we'll learn a lot about them. Their upcoming 5 or so games, because it's a murderer's row that they face beginning this week with Detroit. All right, one of the biggest matchups of the college football season kicks off on Saturday night. Both Ohio State and Oregon have national title hopes, and they'll battle it out under the lights in Eugene. Coverage of the top 5 showdown begins at 7 p.m. Eastern on NBC and Peacock. All right, Bucs-Saints, this line moving all over the place. I believe it opened Saints 2.5. Now it's Bucs 2.5 off of the news that Derek Carr, well, not so much the news, but the event of Derek Carr getting crushed and dealing with an oblique injury. The total is 42.5. I think the line probably also needs to move off of just how atrocious the Saints looked in general on Monday night against the Chiefs, particularly defensively. Don't know how you give up that level of efficiency when Patrick Mahomes has like a 4-yard A dot. Do you materially downgrade the Saints off of Monday Night Football?
Well, yeah, I mean, and most of it is outside of Carr, I think you have to a little. That was what I would say that of the coaching scheming fails of week 5, Dennis Allen's decision to tack away from the strength of the Saints defense, which was man coverage, in lieu of zone coverage, considering the lack of quality of wide receiver talent on the field for the Chiefs, was a very, very confounding decision. I think that in general, the Saints played well below their talent level defensively on Monday Night Football. And that said, if you have a coach that can't kind of put the pieces together in a straightforward way to run a good defense, then, you're going to have a tough time putting it together a defense against the Buccaneers that has absolutely elite wideout weapons and a Baker Mayfield to this point in the season that's playing well above average, league average, I would say. And so, the Saints defense, there was a lot of red flags about what we saw last night, and it had virtually nothing to do with personnel. It was just why were they doing what they were doing in terms of scheme? So consider that, to me at least, a vote of no confidence in Dennis Allen, which is troubling. Three losses in a row now with after a flaming first two games to start the season is definitely put them in a dicey position. The offensive line injuries still exist as an issue, and I thought the Chiefs were able to press that button pretty successfully last night. And speaking again of like head scratching things that coaches did, Jay, Kubiak went from this really fun, interesting, dynamic kind of game planning and scheming to running it on first down every single set of downs for the entire first half of the game, to the point where it was so predictable that they were basically just electing to put themselves in 2nd and 9 consistently. And there was no intermediate work. There was only kind of low probability short stuff and then prayers, deep stuff, hoping for PIs. And it didn't feel like, it felt like we went back in time to the Carmichael Saints offense that was lacking creativity and anything special at all. And so I think it's completely fair to downgrade the Saints off what we saw. And then if you throw into the mix that you would downgrade from Carr to Haener potentially, that makes this, say, about the 27th best offense in the NFL. And I think still a top 10 defense, but I'm now have finger on the trigger to continue to downgrade that unit if we see another game plan like we saw against the Chiefs. So pretty miserable performance by the Saints, I have to say. And the scoreboard maybe doesn't even really express how bad of a beating that was. So it's this is tough times to be a Saints backer, surely. And the loss to the Falcons put them in a very tenuous position in terms of competing for the South, and a loss to the Buccaneers this week would basically be the end of their season. The Buccaneers, it's worth noting for this game, Jay, have the second of the Widowmaker spots of the season, which is they have an extra 3 days rest because they played on Thursday Night Football against a team with -1 rest. And typically this has gone quite well for the team bringing extra rest and time to prepare into this game. And if Tampa Bay's defense shows up healthy, like really just Winfield, if Winfield is available, then I completely agree with this move to Saints being road favorites.
Okay.
Yeah. Excuse me, Bucs being road favorites.
I think Mahomes on Monday night had the greatest 0 touchdown, 1 interception game that I've ever seen, where he was absolutely clinical, but did not get the stats to reflect that. How bad do you think that the Bucs pass defense is with Winfield back? Because the unit without him against Atlanta looked like the worst pass defense in football by margin.
Yeah. And I kind of get it. Like there was a lot of noise and a little bit of fluff supporting individual player grades, notably Zion McCollum, as far as like these guys might be elite cornerbacks. But the fact of the matter is that Todd Bowles coordinates defense one way. He is going to stop the run and he's going to get pressure and he's going to do it at the at the peril of leaving his cornerbacks on islands. And if they are not getting adequate safety help, then things can get sideways very quickly. And that's exactly what happened against that Atlanta team, I thought. And I right now rank the Tampa Bay secondary bottom 3 in the NFL. There are very few secondaries that I would not swap in whole for what Tampa Bay has out there right now. But my upgraded number with the Winfield available moves them kind of right into the middle class. And it would make their defense overall 19th. So a pretty meaningful jump from 29th to 19th just with Winfield available the way that I grade them. And a ton of that is because of how important he is to the scheme that they are going to run, hell or high water.
Yep. Okay, I agree with that. This Sunday night, don't miss Joe Burrow and the Bengals travel east for a date with the Nueva York Giants. Coverage of the matchup in the Meadowlands begins at 7 p.m. Eastern on NBC and Peacock.
As you all know by now, we've teamed up with BetMGM this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all our picks, and we'll have special offers for our listeners each week. If you haven't signed up to BetMGM yet, use bonus code BETEDGE, and you'll get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code BETEDGE. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your first bet loses. Just make sure you use bonus code BETEDGE when you sign up. See BetMGM.com for terms. 21 plus only. U.S. promotional offers not available in New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Available in the U.S. Call 8778-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467369 in New York. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP in Arizona, 1-800-327-5050 in Massachusetts, 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa, 1-800-981-0023 in Puerto Rico. First bet offer for new customers only, subject to eligibility requirements. Rewards are non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire in 7 days in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code BETEDGE and get your $1,500 first bet offer today.
Okay, let's close out with Niners at Seahawks. Thursday Night Football. The Niners are 3.5-point favorites. The total is 47.5. Rough weekend for the Brock Purdy MVP crowd, including myself, though I don't think that is perhaps as dead and buried as the reaction to it has suggested. The Seahawks do not look particularly good against the Giants. This is kind of not season on the line for the Niners. They can still win the division from 2-4, given how vulnerable it seems. But do you think there is any bet to be made in this game? And do you agree with the current line of 3.5?
I'm going to say this is season on the line for the Niners because they better win this game. My opinion is actually more shaded by the fact that I bet them to win this game and to cover by margin because of the personnel available for the Seahawks. The Seahawks have a cluster injury going on the defense, and they got some positive signs before the Giants game that things were getting better, but ultimately the quality of play from the players who came back was not good, and then they suffered more injuries. It sounds to me very unlikely that kind of their young interior talent in terms of pass rush is going to be available for this one. Byron Murphy, I would expect, continues to be out, and Leonard Williams is dealing, obviously, as he's been playing well below expectation as he's been dealing with injuries so far this season. And then Boye Mafe is going to have a tough time returning on a short week. And then the recent return of Nwosu was abbreviated by another injury. Jerome Baker does not look like he is close to 100%. And Tyreek Woolen gets injured as well in that game against the Giants. So just questions really throughout the defensive side here for Seattle. And the guys that have been backfilling were unable to do anything to create pressure or really tilt the game in their favor against the Lions, which is not a good sign because the Niners are basically Lions, but a little better in terms of some of the skill position players. And so I think ultimately the Niners being able to get their feet under them in this game and, put a full 60 minutes together and finish a game is my expectation here. The Niners 2-3 record is, and I know a lot of people are going to say this, and a win's a win, a loss is a loss, but the two losses they have in Division 2, Arizona and the LA Rams, they were dominating for so long in each of those games, and the fluke endings really flipped those outcomes to the tune of not really losing faith in the Niners as still being an elite team in the NFL. Now, elite in 2024 in the NFL is a much lower ceiling than it has been in years past. That is just the facts. The good teams are all relatively flawed, including the Niners. But I would still make them the top power rated team in terms of predicting outcomes for the rest of the season. And I think that as they continue to get healthier, they're putting a string of wins together through the middle portion of the season is realistic. They get extra rest after this game to prepare for a Chiefs game where the Chiefs are coming off the bye. That's going to really kind of tell the tale of their early portion of the season. A loss to the Seahawks would be disastrous, followed by what would be truly an elimination game, for lack of a better way to phrase it, against the Chiefs. So, this one's big. It's important. I laid through with the Niners. 3.5, I think, is still a little short. My fair price on this one is 4.8, considering I'm expecting most of the Seattle defenders to be unavailable or to be performing below expectation. And I think the flip side is a very tough handicap. And I'd like your opinion on this because I know you're kind of more or less a Geno guy, and really just a Geno, Seahawks pass offense guy. Like, are you worried at all that sort of the strength of the Seahawks right now, their pass offense kind of goes into the only thing that the Niners defense is doing well in pass defense?
Yes. And the thing with being a Geno man, which I still am, despite losing to the New York Giants, a 7-point favorite, is that he's never had a good offensive line his entire career. Yeah. And I get that he does bring some of the pressure on himself and he shouldn't be taking as many sacks as he does. But, I mean, the right side of the offensive line is just a catastrophe. Charles Cross on the left side is solid, but it's just always going to be an issue. And now you get Nick Bosa coming at you on a short week. But, yeah, I agree with you. Like, I think the Seattle offense is fine and will continue to be fine and an above average, but not top 5 type of unit, but the defense there just doesn't seem to be a great deal there. And their season-long numbers now are not ultra impressive, which is, they're down to their defense is now 10th in EPA per play, which, on the surface seems good. But then you remember that they played whatever the hell was happening for Miami at quarterback in that game. They played Jacoby Brissett, Bo Nix, and Daniel Jones and the Giants. And they're one good. And like the other match was against Jared Goff, who's really struggled this year, kind of outside of that game where he didn't have an incomplete pass, right? He threw a perfect game. So it's a big concern. And I think that this is going to be high scoring. I don't think the Niners defense is particularly amazing either. So I would expect that the Niners are going to move the ball at will in this one. I think they're getting unlucky in terms of just outcomes relative to what they're doing on a play-by-play basis, San Francisco. So in talking about how, you think that the Niners are the number one power-rated team, in the NFC, they project as the best team going forward in the NFC. Do you think there's any merit in backing them now at plus 425 to win the NFC, plus 750 to win the Super Bowl coming into this matchup? It's likely that the Niners are not going to have a worse record than they do now, given that they're favorites to win the game. Is this the time to back the Niners, or is there just not enough meat on the bone at those prices for a team that's 2-3?
I think there's not enough meat on the bone. If you want to take them, I would consider a bet on the Niners this week effectively the same as a bet on the Niners to win the NFC West. Not a huge difference in price in terms of what you're asking to delay right now. But the futures beyond winning the West is where it gets tricky, Jay. There is a very concentrated, bundle of teams that are going to hit right around 9, 10, 11 wins. And the Niners have put themselves in a tenuous spot from a tiebreak standpoint to where getting the 1 seed, I think, is out of the question. Getting a 2 seed is going to be tough. They're going to have to literally have a win on whoever wins the East and whoever wins the South if they want the 2 seed. And I think there is a huge slice of the probability space here where the Niners still get in as either the West champs or the or a high wild card, but are on the road in the second and third rounds of the playoffs. And so my appetite for backing the Niners in sort of the futures pool is a little muted, because I think if you roll over the price of winning their home game in the 4-5, their road game at Minnesota, and their road game at Atlanta is probably going to be better than the current price you're seeing right now. Now, I will have absolutely no hesitation clicking Niners to win on the road at Minnesota, at Atlanta, at Detroit, at Green Bay, at the Eagles, at the Commanders. I mean, there's really no team I'm afraid to bet them on, bet on them on the road, at least as currently rostered. It's just a matter of, is that going to be a better way to get your action and then taking them now? Because I don't know that you're going to see the market move a ton on them if they put together a couple of wins here. And I do think they still, their path looks a little challenging to me.
Yep. I think that's fair when you consider the not impossibility, but the fact that they're extremely unlikely to get the 1 seed. It's pretty hard to make the math work, where their money line by money line prices wouldn't just be a better play than backing them at their current outright odds. I actually, by my numbers, the bet to make around the Niners and the division is actually on the Rams at 16-1 to win the division, because they're only getting back of the Niners, and they have the tiebreak over the Niners right now because they somehow beat them. But I don't really trust my gauge on the Rams and how I'm rating them at the moment, because it's just all over the place. But they're 1 game back at San Francisco in the division, and they're getting healthier. So it's just Stafford hasn't looked particularly good, I think, is their issue, kind of compared, as well as all the injuries that they're dealing with. But yeah, strange season for the Los Angeles Rams. All right, we are done for today. Don't forget to check out NBCsports.com for more information to help you with your wagers. Thanks for watching on the NBC Sports YouTube channel. And if you're listening to us in podcast form, don't forget to rate and subscribe. Also a reminder to find all your favorite NBC Sports shows on Amazon Music. Just head to amazon.com/NBC Sports. From myself and Drew Dinsick, we'll see you soon.